Hi, everybody. I'm Tamara Zoner.
And I'm John Davis.
Welcome to Spirit Cafe.
Come in, sit down, and
grab a cup of love.
A Spirituality Without the Guilt podcast. Hey, guys, it's John Davis, and I am here, and for some reason, I have a guest thing on, so let me go ahead and turn the guest thing off, and boom, off. And I am here and I am back, and that'll look great on the video. So I am here and I am here for Spirit Cafe. We're very excited today. I have someone here. We have someone here today who I have seen in action doing her amazing work. And I'm real excited to talk to our guest today. But before we introduce our guest, of course, I have to bring in my cohort in crime, Miss Tamara Zoner. How are you today, Tamara?
I'm doing all right, John. How are you?
I'm obviously a little frazzled. I got my tech all weird this morning. It's a little strange.
A little crazy this morning. Some weird things are happening. That's okay.
It's the way, you roll with the punches on all things, right? So, ladies and gentlemen, and Tamara, this person that I'm bringing in today, Deanna Fitzpatrick. I saw her at the Milton Theater in Delaware because my sister went and saw her. And then she took my other sister to see her. And then they brought me to see her. And then my sister went back to see her. She has become the hot topic in my family. And so I was very excited to have her on here. And I will share some of our experiences with her after we get to meet her a little bit. So hello to you, Deanna Fitzpatrick, and welcome to Spirit Cafe.
Hi, John and Tamara. Thank you for having me today.
Oh, very, very excited to have you. This has been something that I have been anticipating for a while, and I will share with you my story of meeting you later. So why don't you just tell us a little bit about you and how you came to be doing what you're doing now?
Okay. Well, it's really kind of a crazy story for mediumship. Most of my friends or mediums had the ability when they were children, and it freaked them out or freaked their parents out. So they blocked it. And then somehow in their adulthood, they got it back again. But for me, I don't remember that as a child, but in 2001, I went to hypnotherapist for weight loss. And the weight loss part didn't happen. but the lady who did the hypnosis afterwards, I don't know what kind of clearing occurred, but I started seeing spirit. So I used to work at a credit card bank, and I'd go to work and I'd see spirit walking around with their people. And I was like, whoa, what is this? Like, because I'm a Capricorn and a banker. So I had no idea what was happening at the time. It was all part of an awakening process that was happening too, I guess. And then finally I asked that woman again, and she said, oh, you're channeling. And I didn't know what that was. So all of it was very new. And I had to figure out what was happening. And that was a long time ago now. Gosh, that's 20 years ago. So that all started.
20 years ago. And when I saw you, you're very impressive. And when did you start doing the live stuff on stages like that?
That was in 2012. I'm trying to remember the first one. I think might have been at the Senior Center here in Middletown, but Milton was very close. They had just opened, and they had this little section in the Milton Theater that they didn't have seats for the stage yet. So they had like folding chairs in this little section, and with 36 people. And I started, working there, and I've been working there ever since, at least quarterly. And that's a beautiful theater. That's a lot of fun and a lot good energy there to work with.
Yeah, it's a cool little town too. It's just kind of a neat little hometown sort of feel to it. So mediumship. Now I'm going to tell you that you impressed me greatly. And like I say, I'm going to share with you the whole story in a little bit. But when you started getting those kind of messages and stuff like that, did you find that you felt compelled to share?
So sometimes, yes, sometimes the spirit will be very persistent in making sure that I say whatever they're trying to drum into my head there. But I also learned very quickly that you just don't go up to people you don't know or people who are not open and say, hey, I have your brother here, right. That's very invasive, and not everyone's on board with this. And I had to learn, I learned that pretty quickly, is like, not everybody's into it. And so I kind of put it to spirit a lot of times. If you really want me to connect to your person, you make it happen. Right, so, so basically they present a scenario. I do remember I used to say to people, when it first happened and I had a message that was really forthcoming, I would ask them if they ever watched the Long Island Medium. That's how I would do it. Do you watch the Long Island Medium? And if they said, yes, I love that. I'm like, okay, I got somebody here for you. Like that.
Right.
And yeah. And if they said no, we're like, oh, okay. And we let it go.
Right.
It's not,
Kind
but
of
mostly
your inroad.
yeah. So mostly now, though, I'm not open to spirit when I'm not working. So over the years, you learn to kind of control that a little better. And so, and I pride myself on kind of living in both worlds. Like I live here most of the time, and then I kind of work there. And I enjoy it better that way. I'm more grounded that way. Yeah.
Nice. Interesting. I always like to go back a little bit. And could you tell us, Deanna, what was it like for you growing up? Were you a spiritual person? Were you religious? Like when you first started seeing spirit, what was your foundation in spirituality, and how did that impact you? Because you've said banker and Capricorn. I'm also a Capricorn. So I know we get real brainy and we tend to live like in the real grounded
in the literal.
And then when the woo-woo begins to occur, how did you adapt? So what was your foundation, and then how did you transition into being open, or did you have to adapt?
Yeah, so definitely a huge transition. The time between kind of what I would consider more of a spiritual awakening, which happened around the time of the hypnosis, and the time that I actually started practicing, was about 5 years. So there was a lot of awakening processing that was happening during that time. So when I started having connections with spirit, that was all around that time. But growing up, I really didn't have any spiritual experience. I did have some religious experience as a child. My parents actually said they stopped going to church because when I was a baby, I would always cry when the choir started to sing. So, I don't know if it was too much. I don't know. But
well,
so
most church choirs are in serious disharmony. So I can see how that could be.
That's the only thing I liked about church.
Me too, when I was older. And then I started going to different churches, trying to find the church I felt at home in, and never found that. And so in the awakening process, I started reading different books, and you know how the synchronicities are, where spirit, your guides will help you find whatever it is you need to find. And that was happening a lot before all the connection with spirit. But mostly, I'm trying to think back here, as a child, the only thing I can remember that was probably difficult for me was that I was highly sensitive, and no one understood that, right? Now we know what HSPs are, and no one knew that then. So my mother was always telling me, you're too sensitive. Why do you cry all the time? Why can't you just take, and she was the worst at that. And so that was hard. And I came to this conclusion that being sensitive and being emotional was a bad thing. And now I know that I could not process this work, do this work with spirit, if I had not been that highly sensitive person. So.
Right. Wow. Well, by the way, if anything pops up in your while we're here, if you feel free, you go right ahead.
I've never watched Long Island Medium, but I'm still open.
Well, I figured since the name of this is Spirit Cafe, I thought probably pretty good, right?
I feel like I should watch that. I've heard it a few times now. I just don't watch TV very much.
Well, do you want to hear the story about my finding you?
Sure.
Okay, so my sister went and saw you at Milton Theater, and calls me up out of the blue, says, "My God, Mom came through." I said, "Really? That's interesting." So then she took my sister, and that's a pretty good sized crowd you get there.
Yeah.
And Mom came through in that crowd too, for both of them. So then my sister said, let's take you, John, because you have this big spiritual connection and all this stuff. Let's see what happens when you go. So we get to the theater, and my sister Susan, she's got her doctorate in mathematics. She's a very science-minded person. She would not sit near me so that you would not see the two of us sitting together. Right.
Wow.
So I'm sitting in the middle of the theater, and you start saying, "There's a woman here playing the piano." And it's like she's playing the piano for the church. And you're like, and I'm like, okay, that's my mom. because my mom was the organist at the church. She played piano all the time. But I'm keeping my hand down until I hear a little bit more. She says, and there's someone here who's got like a, I don't know, like a vaudeville kind of show or something, or something like that. I did Renaissance festivals for over 20 years.
Wow.
And they called it the New Vaudeville, right? So I raised my hand, and you pegged me, man. You pegged me hard. You said things that I had always wanted my mother to say, and exactly the way she would have said it. And then you told me that you said, "Are you like a spiritual counselor or something like that?" And I said, "Well, I do a lot of that work." She says, "You don't know all the good you've done." That's what you said. She was saying. And then you went on and you said all this stuff, right? And it was just really good. And my sister was in the room, and her biggest thing was when Mom passed away. Mom was alone in Florida, and my sister didn't like the fact that she was alone. Thought that she was probably in pain, even though we had no proof of that, right? And you turned and you said, and your mom wants you to know that she was right where she wanted to be. She was not in any pain. And when she crossed over, it was like, I'm here and then I'm there, right? Which is exactly what my sister needed to say, which was great. So we finished that. My sister goes back and my mom comes through again. Right.
It's persistent, hey?
Right. Comes through again. But this time she brings my dad through. And in my family, my father, they had 7 kids. And my father was abusive to one of them, and I was the one. And mainly because I was very different. I was just a very different kid. He could not fit into what I was, because I was having out of body experiences. I was having all kinds of stuff from a very, very young age. I was having, he and I just didn't jive. And he came through to apologize to the one child that he was mean to. And that was so that is my experience with Deanna Fitzpatrick. Pretty incredible story. And so that's why I was so excited about bringing you on, because it validates you in such a big way. It also proves that my mother was a loudmouth.
I guess she likes to talk as much as you do, John.
Right. Yes. So that's the story. So does that happen often, where the same person comes back over and over again?
No, not usually. And and I can actually feel myself on stage being worried about the rest of the audience being angry that your whole family's getting multiple readings.
Well, and we can't. This is all different sections. This isn't the same night. This is like,
so they it wasn't the same night. Okay.
Each one was a different time.
Okay. Yeah. So some spirits are really more boisterous, more like energetic, have even a higher vibration or more of a personality when they were here. So they carry that with them. And they are the actual easier people to connect with in the spirit world because of that. It's the quiet dads that don't say anything that drive me up a wall, because that's who they were in the living. So anybody with that bigger than life personality that comes through usually can get my attention before everyone else. And in the case of your mom, see, I tend not to remember my readings. It just goes when I'm done. But the feeling is that your mom really wanted to, she has an agenda. She had a goal, and she was going to make sure that happened. And my guess is that's her personality in life too. She set something forward. She was going to make it happen.
Yep. And what's interesting about my mom had her master's degree in liturgy, and she was head of liturgical doctrine at a Catholic church. But in the last years of her life, she and I got into deep spiritual conversations without the religion involved. And so at the end of her life, she was very open. And so it was very interesting to see her go to the other side and then start to come through a medium, which is frowned upon in the Catholic Church, So
it is, but I always love when I have the ministers or preachers come in and they connect, and it cracks me up, because especially the ministers will come in still holding their Bible as if they're still wary about what I'm doing.
So Tamara, what do you think about all this?
I think it's amazing. And I always have found this so interesting. And I don't think anyone in my family ever has had, or at least not told us about it, but you would think they would tell me, someone come through or reach out. I don't know, maybe we just all resolve our stuff while we're here.
Well, that's lovely. That's lovely. If that's happening, that's not the way of most humanity.
Right. But
So.
yeah, we're, as Catholic as my mom's family is, she's also always had some psychic experiences. So there's that openness there where she's the one who'll know somebody's pregnant before they do. Well, I've done that too. Oh my gosh, I've had 2 psychic pregnancies where I had to tell my sister, go take another test because you're pregnant. But never like spirit, and I talk to my grandma all the time, but I don't know that it's coming through or just an openness in the connection, right?
So the way I feel it works, and I always laugh because I say sometimes I'll get over there and I'll find out that what I think is happening isn't really it at all, and I've told you all wrong. But so there's to me, this is all energetic. So I tell my clients, spirit's not up in the clouds; they're in another dimension that's 2 to 4 feet around us, and they're just vibrate at a higher frequency. So it's a matter of, for me, connecting, they lower their energy or frequency, I raise mine, we meet in the middle. And it kind of feels like to me they walked across the wall, but that's not really what happened. So I feel like eventually, and I could be wrong on this, but I feel like everybody has the ability to do this as we raise our vibration and open up to the possibility of it. There's a lot of fear involved with this type of work. And I think what most of the time people don't realize is that they can set boundaries with the spirit world. So if we're dealing with people that are our loved ones in spirit, they don't have a desire to frighten us or do things that are on a negative side of things. They just want to show up to us and let us know they're around or we're having a rough time and they want to be here for us. And they're not here 24/7. I've heard that said before. They're with you 24/7. No, because their vibration can't maintain the denser level for all that long. It's usually in a reading, a spirit will stay between 20 and 40 minutes to say all they want to say, and then they'll go on because they can't hold that lower vibration for so long, but because we're heavy and dense. But anyway, I feel like that's just the way it works. As we become more aware of how things work, I feel like we'll all get an opportunity to connect with our spirit people because they want to connect.
I'm a firm believer that they do that. Yes, they do want to connect. I've had, when I was a kid, I was, of course, shoveling the walks at the church for my mom because it was the snow. And that's, I was the one kid old enough to do that. And, and while I was out there shoveling, I suddenly had this man pop into my head, and it was the guy who used to deliver milk to the dairy store that I worked at. And it wasn't a guy that I knew very well. It wasn't a guy who necessarily had a very pleasant demeanor per se, but out of the blue, he just popped into my consciousness, and I was like, okay. And I was 15 at the time. I knew that it was him. He was connecting, and so do you find that as you go through, because you say you kind of close it off, do you find that you used to have them just pop in all the time?
Yeah, and sometimes they still will right before a session. So I'll tell you this one story that the lady knows that I shared. I never share names, but I used to do group readings in people's homes. And I was on the way to one, and it was a Saturday afternoon. And I was about 3 or 4 minutes away from their house. And I started getting the signs of a heart attack. I started belching. I started feeling pain on my left side, down my arm, up my neck. I'm like, what in the world is happening? And I almost turned around and drove myself to the hospital, because even though that's the wrong thing to do, I felt like it would be the quickest thing for me to do. But then all of a sudden it dawned on me, and I just said out loud in the car, if this is spirit, please stop. And they stopped. It stopped. It all went away.
Wow.
And I got to the house and introduced myself and started the thing. And I started telling them the story of on the way there of what had happened. And the woman raises her hand. She goes, "You got my sister." And she said, my sister was called me one afternoon. She's in her late 40s. She called me and said she wasn't feeling well. I told her to go to the doc in the box. I'd never heard that before, doc in the box. And she said, I told her to go. And she said, no, I'm just going to lay down for a little bit. Apparently she had a massive heart attack and died on the couch.
Mm.
So she was making sure that I was going to know she was there. But it almost sent me, can you imagine that going to the hospital and the EKG probably would have been fine, right? Like,
Right,
what are you
right.
talking about, lady? So there's been times like that prior to sessions where I'll feel something in my body. I'll have a headache. I'll take Advil and then find out it wasn't my headache. So I need to learn to ask more before I pop the Advils, right? But yeah, so there's things like that. Somebody was messing around. They don't usually do this at night, but somebody at 2:00 in the morning last week made a sound. Both my husband and I heard. It was like da da da, like that. And we're like, what the heck? Woke up, both of us, 2:00 on the dot. My phone was on airplane and his phone was in his office. The only thing it could have been was Alexa, but Alexa wasn't lit up.
Mm.
So we have no idea what that sound was or where it came from. And because I like sleep, I told them they had to leave.
So you get clairaudient stuff too. Like,
Yeah. So it started for me mostly with clairvoyance. I had pictures all the time, and then the pictures became symbology. So a metal lunchbox meant that the man was a blue collar worker, worked in a plant or a factory. So different pictures helped me to tell a story that they were giving me. Then as time and feeling clairsentient all the time. And then finally, after a while, I went through 2 years where I kept hearing frequencies. Like I could be in there, I can still do it. I can hear frequencies in my room. And sorry, somebody's about to knock on. Oh, good, they didn't knock. The dogs were going to start barking. I was like,
Boy,
oh, no, don't do that.
You just said that. I was like, oh my God, is it a real person or someone knocking on?
Somebody's knocking.
They come through, but they're polite about it.
I forgot what I was saying.
And are the dogs real too?
Yes, mostly. Now I forgot what I was saying.
Well, I'm sorry, I tangent. Comedy makes me go off on tangents.
That's good.
So have you ever had animals come through?
Yes. And it depends on how I'm working. So sometimes spirit will show up and they show up with animals. So if they had someone's dog, like let's say a dad came in and he shows me a black lab. The black lab was actually his son who's in the living and he's letting him know he has the dog with them. They'll show up with dogs they had from childhood. Like they might have a dog that was their favorite dog and they've got him on the other side. Mostly I don't see them without a person unless I'm looking. So I think what that tells me is the frequency is a little different for animals than it is for people. So I have to kind of look for the animal per se. So when I do readings for pets that have passed, I ask for a picture and then I do those pretty quickly. And then I connect with the animal that way. Right. But most of the time they're either with people that love us or they're in like the wonderful world of dog park in heaven. It's like, it's pretty amazing. Cats come through and they have their cat personality. I think in Milton once I started out the evening with a room full of people who had never seen me work and a horse came through. And I was like, oh no, they're gonna think I'm crazy right from the start. There's a horse here. Right. So yeah, animals are fun to connect with. Horses are a lot like people. They have all kinds of drama in their fields and stuff like that. And dogs usually have a purpose and need a purpose and want a purpose. And cats are cats. They'll do what they want.
Right.
That's why I like cats.
Yeah.
So what's your favorite kind of where do you have the most fun in your work? What do you enjoy the most?
That's a lovely question. Thank you. I love the stage and it's funny because as a little girl, I remembered, I know, John, you lived down the beach, right? At that area?
Right, Beach, yeah.
Yeah, but in Philly, in our area, was a guy named Al Albert. And he did this Saturday morning showcase with little girls dressed in their big fancy dresses and shoes. And I always wanted to be on Al Albert's showcase. And I wanted to be on stage. And even as a teenager, I was in the theater at school and that didn't pan out for me. So it's really odd now that I'm on stage. But when I'm on stage, I feel like that's when my soul sings. I'm very happy up there. I feel like it's the most fun I have, which sorry, family.
You get it. It's okay.
Yeah.
You're talking to theater people here, so we get it.
And so I love doing that. And also just the way spirit communicates and the way that they come through and deliver like they did for John and his family is just it's a wonderful high to be able to do that for folks. And I enjoy that the most.
Beautiful.
That is beautiful. That's absolutely beautiful. I cannot in any way, shape, or form give you a bigger glowing recommendation, because I think you're just spectacular, and I'm just amazed by the work you do. How do people get a hold of you and set up times with you and stuff like that?
Sure. So the website is deannafitzpatrick.com. Right now, besides the public events, which I don't have a ton of right now because we're still coming out of the whole mess of COVID. But I do private readings in my home, not in my home. I have an office actually in Middletown. And I also do them on Zoom and phone as well. So you can schedule right online. You don't need to call or anything. You're welcome to email if you have any questions, but it's all right there available on deannafitzpatrick.com.
That's
You have
awesome.
Instagram and Facebook and all that good stuff.
I'm good with Facebook. Yeah, I have Facebook and I have an Instagram. I don't do much with it. I'm not at all doing anything with TikTok yet. I'm behind on all these things.
You and me both, sister. I'm not on Instagram. I'm not on TikTok, and I don't even like being on Facebook.
But you're doing good on Zoom.
I'm doing good on YouTube. We're doing good on YouTube.
Oh, good.
Yeah. I just monetized my channel on YouTube.
Oh, wonderful.
So yeah, pretty cool. So Tamara, what else do you want to talk about here?
Well, I want to know, Deanna, like, what do you want people to know, who are maybe hesitant about, maybe they've had someone pass, but they're like, I don't know if I believe in this stuff. And coming from your background where you were a banker, right? Not the most like ethereal vocation. What do you tell people who are weary or a little wary of this kind of thing?
So first off, I never try to sell what I do to anybody. If they find the right time, if it's the right time for them, they'll come. I think the thing that always makes me laugh the most is folks will say, well, they're just going to look you up online. So I always laugh because imagine a theater like Milton Theater where there's 100 to 200 people. I don't even have the list. So I'm not going to go online and memorize 200 people's information about the obituary of their father.
Right.
So locally there's a Middletown group here, and they're on Facebook, and they always say things like that, and I'm just like, oh, first off, if you knew, I have no memory, so it wouldn't work that way. But mostly I feel like if people are coming for a personal one, they tend to be really nervous in the beginning, and that's natural because they don't know what to expect. And usually we get a I can't even say the word, a friendship going right from the beginning that feels that they're comfortable. And then they're just a feeling that everything's okay after that. That's just the nervousness of the beginning part of it. Also, I don't advertise this, but if I can't read for somebody, and I quit in 10 minutes and give them their money back. So, I'm not going to take someone's money for work that I can't do. Doesn't happen often. It does happen occasionally. And we have an offer of rescheduling or giving them their deposit back. So, but as far as people not being sure, I just go with their gut instincts, what their heart tells them. If they don't feel like it's right for them, don't push it. But basically it's up to them. Give it a shot if they'd like to. And it's not scary. I feel like people feel that they're like, first off, that we're going to tell them something bad. And normally we don't do that. I mean, I think the worst case scenario is usually that somebody needs to put air in their right front tire. So sometimes, we do know on occasion, we don't get this very often if someone's going to pass, but and every time that spirit has given me that information and asked me to convey it, it's because the person already knows that person is going to pass. So in one scenario, it was a young couple, and their mother had come through to say that their aunt was going to pass in Florida, and if they wanted to go see her, do it now. She was in a nursing home and she was ill, which I felt much better, because we're told not to predict passings, but they did get to go see her, and she passed a week later. So in that case, it was a helpful thing for them, and they were so glad to have had that opportunity that they may not have taken otherwise. But normally it's not anything scary that comes through, and it's usually heartwarming. Lately, there's a lot of clairaudience, so I hear them talk a lot, and they tell me entire family stories, some of them, which contain sometimes some trauma, and also spirit is trying to make amends from the other side, because I feel like they see things from a higher perspective that they may not have when they were here. Especially previous generations did not always live consciously like we're trying to do, and so now they see the ramifications of their actions and words. So
do you feel, and I know we won't go too much longer, but do you feel that the consciousness level is raising right now?
Oh, that's a tough question, John. Yes. So if I just look at it from when this kind of all started for me, yes, because the only people I could find back in 2000 and 2001 were people online on, different spiritual groups that were websites at the time. That, we didn't have the kind of group kind of accessibility or even information accessibility that we have now. So yes, I feel like that is happening, and I see it around me. My daughter is on her own awakening kind of process there. Her spiritualism is increasing. A few other people, and my husband, who's a techie, asked if he started asking me about Raymond Moody and past lives and life in between lives, and I'm like, where is this coming from? He wanted to read and read the Afterlife of Jimmy Fingers, is that right? I think I got that wrong too. But Billy Fingers, the Afterlife of Billy Fingers. And I was surprised, and he's been reading those things, and now he stopped again until I guess he gets his next synchronicities. But so there seems to be some increase, although there's almost some of the opposite too that seems to be extensive. So
well, I think Socrates once said, when the debate is lost, slander becomes the tool of the loser. And I think that what's happening in the opposite, I think that because of the rise of consciousness, the people who aren't ready to do that are being really loud right now. Wow. And I think that's really the biggest issue in the whole experience. What do you think, Tamara?
I think that the contrast is necessary for us to see one. We have to also see the other. So, and also, like you mentioned, Deanna, there's so much more accessibility that maybe we're just more aware of what was already there. Right. But and that leads to more people saying, oh, maybe I also want to live with more consciousness. And now I have access to learning how to, because I didn't before, and I didn't even know about it. And I didn't know there was a different way because I have only ever known my little family. Right. And now we have a world family that we all have access to. Well, most of us have access to, and it expands us. That's my thought, John.
Maybe what's happening too is the confusion with that, right? Like if you've only ever known your own little world and your own little group, and there's something so much more out there and many more versions, right? Then how do you know where you fit in until you try different versions of the world?
Yeah.
Right. So Dan, I got to tell you, you might, I know you probably don't know this, but you have the classic Delaware accent. And it's making me homesick because I live in Ohio now, and we speak very differently out here than Delaware. So I hear the little Delawarean things in there that I'm like, God, I wish I was home.
I was out to lunch one day with a bunch of people from New York. I was up there for a friend's passing, and they were laughing. They said, "What did you just say?" And it was this. It was Wooder.
Wooder, yep.
WOODER, Wooder.
Wooder, right. That's so. I remember the Philly people laughing at me about saying Wooder, and I was like, "Don't you say Wooder in Philly?" And like, no, we say water. I was like, No, it's water. It's water. I completely agree. Going swimming in the water, right? Well, this has been absolutely lovely. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. I really
And
appreciate it.
oh, I could talk to you for hours, and I would love to do that sometime. And maybe we can get you to come back on another time, and maybe next time we'll prep you a little ahead of time. We'll see about maybe even get you to do some work
Okay.
on here.
So there has been somebody here,
Oh,
but I don't know who they're for, and I'm taking a risk because
Oh, do
you know
it.
you just don't know what will happen. But there is a gentleman who is taller, and he's actually, this is weird because they usually show up at my office, but this person is behind Tamara, and they are fairly tall, but they also have a gray beard and mustache, but they have gray hair too. It is salt and pepper, so I can tell that they would have been darker when they were younger. They give me their feeling about being approximately 78. I do see glasses for them. They have me feeling a heart-lung combination, but I also feel there's a hip or lower back issue as well for them prior to passing. So does that help at all?
I mean, it kind of sounds like my grandpa, but on my mom's side, he had a heart attack. Everybody has heart attacks apparently in my family. But it wasn't so salt and pepper. It was very, very gray. So I gotta think. My dad had a lot of brothers and not so many anymore. But it's curious because my dad is actually in the hospital right now, having his heart monitored for a possible heart attack. So
Wow.
yeah, so
I'm sorry to hear that.
he's okay. So
Okay.
I mean, for now, right?
Tamara, is there a Bob or a Robert, living or past?
No, but there's a Richard,
Okay, is that still on dad's side or mom's side?
dad's side, and he isn't quite that age. He's a little younger and recently passed.
Okay. All right, similar scenario, chest area. Okay. All right. So I'm not sure, but I just saw that person standing around you when he said something about maybe doing a reading. I'm like, oh, I wasn't really open. Let's see. So yeah, so that person was been around you for the duration. I'm not sure exactly if you know who they are or not. The only thing that, and they want to keep going with things that are wrong, that were wrong with them. They are having me feel that there was a leg or foot issue from the knee down.
Okay, that's a totally different person that I'm
See,
thinking. Wow.
yeah, so this might be a whole bunch of people coming in and I'm only seeing the one. See, this is why I don't open.
But it's
No.
fun. And so interesting. So
So I could be doing a whole reading here. I think we're getting into too much trouble. So I think I'll stop at this point.
well, maybe we'll have to have you come back and do that. Or
We would
maybe
love
I'll-
to have you come back. I would love to have you come back. That'd be
Yeah.
great.
It's fun. So interesting.
Well, awesome. Well, this has
One
been
last
lovely.
question. Like
Yes.
what would you say, Deanna, is the most persistent message that
Oh, great.
most spirit wants to share with the people they come through to?
The entire previous generation, with the exception of a very few, didn't tell people they loved them. And that's the main thing. I should have told you more. I didn't tell you enough. You knew I loved you, but I never said it. I didn't know how important it was, because when people pass, one of the things that people hold on to here is they never told me they loved me. Even if they knew it, they still wanted to hear the words.
Yeah.
And it's amazing what the words, you know, that carry for people. So I feel like that's it. And there's a lot of sorry I caused that, or sorry, you know, there's a lot of apologies for not living consciously and making choices and decisions that had a lifelong impact on folks, you know.
Yeah.
I totally get that, because my household, we did not say it. And when I was going through my own awakening, I started purposely saying it to my mother. And the first, I remember very distinctly the first time I said it to her, she stuttered. And she was like, well, I love you too. And it was just very sheltered. But I think that was the generation. That's how they were. And And my son doesn't have that experience. I tell him too much, probably, right? But, just because I don't want him to have the same experience.
I don't think there's ever a too much. I think
well, okay, but I yell at when he's getting out of the car at school. Is that bad? No, I'm kidding.
Yes.
maybe tell him as often, but
I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
That's great. Teenagers love that.
Hey, Pookie, I love you.
My dad once shouted at me.
And he gets beat up in high school.
Shouted my nickname, right? He was like, "Hey, Turtle, I'm over here." And then I never lived that down. The rest of my classmates called me Turtle for the rest of my school career. And still do. All right. I think we're ready to wrap it up. And I want to thank both of you, John, for bringing Deanna on, and Deanna for being so open with us and sharing a little bit of your story and the stories of others, and that message that you are loved. Yes. Even if they didn't tell you, they love you. You are loved. You are worthy of love. And we're so grateful that you're here. And we will speak to you again next week.
Thank you for joining us at Spirit Cafe, a place where you can safely explore your spirituality without the guilt or dogma of religion. Leave all comments and suggestions on the Spirit Cafe podcast Facebook page.